we didn't expect for KFM to be not only a source of information but a source of comfort.
I'm sure some people would assume that bila kita bercakap di platform macam ni kan, yang kita got everything under control. Anak-anak kita semua on top of everything kan, semua macam okay je.
And I think maybe it was a hope and aspiration when we started the podcast was people will not say keep your child at home anymore.
Hai, salam sejahtera. Selamat datang ke episod ke-83 Kita Family Podcast. Di podcast ini, kami selalu membincangkan perihal yang berkaitan dengan makna serta kepentingan hidup bermasyarakat, menghargai keunikan serta kepelbagaian sesama kita dan meraihkan masyarakat yang berbilang agama, kaum, kepercayaan, rupa dan juga keupayaan. Kita menghargai hidup secara inklusif yang mengambil kira keperluan segenap lapisan masyarakat, terutama bagi mereka yang kurang atau berkelainan. Hai, nama saya Desri dan bersama-sama saya di studio hari ini adalah Anit.
Hello, apa khabar?
Dan di Kota Kinabalu, Sabah, Didi.
Hai, Assalamualaikum.
Untuk episod ni, Nori dan kakak SK tidak dapat bersama-sama kami, tetapi kami semua termasuk dua kakak kita yang tak dapat datang hari ini mengucapkan selamat tahun baru kepada semua penonton dan pendengar kami. Kami telah pun melangkau ke tahun 2026 dan bagi saya rasa macam surreal sikit because it's 83 episodes. Can you believe it, Anit and Didi?
Yeah. 2 tahun dah.
You can, I cannot.
No, I only can believe it because there's evidence.
There's evidence.
Kita ada bukti yang tidak dapat dinafikan dan tidak dapat di-erase daripada rekod-rekod YouTube dan Spotify.
Betul juga. Tapi if really looking at evidence kan, sekarang ni saya nak quiz our lawyer. The evidence is sebenarnya kita ada lebih daripada 83 episod kan?
Ya, 86 ke 87 kan? Sebab episod yang pertama pilot kami
tak ada nombor. And then bila kita buat live sessions, usually kita tak bagi nombor kepada episode.
Especially yang hari OKU sedunia hari tu pun tak ada nombor. Kita ada episod yang
first anniversary at Bar Council
pun tak ada nombor. Lepas tu ada yang hari tu pergi Desri pergi dengan Nori.
Exxon.
Yang tu pun tak ada nombor.
So yes. So kami ada lebih daripada 83 episod.
I think it's 88, ong number to end 2025.
Okay lah, siapa dalam kita berlima ni pandai mat? Tolong buat kira-kira sikit.
Tetapi seperti Nori yang selalu cakap, di Malaysia ini kami ada bukan 1 tahun baru sahaja, iaitu 1 Januari.
Yes.
Kita ada beberapa tahun baru yang boleh kami raikan.
Betul.
Seperti
Chinese New Year,
Tahun Baru Cina. Lepas tu
Awal Muharram,
Tamil New Year,
Malayali New Year, Sikh New Year
dan sebagainya. Okay, so kenapa saya bincang sedikit tentang the number of episodes that we have gone through so far. Dah lebih sedikit daripada 2 tahun. Dan this year we'll be going into our 3rd year. So kita nak bincang topik hari ni tentang apa yang sekarang kita tahu yang sebelum ni kita tak tahu. Right? So in English, what we know now that we didn't know before. Tadi sebut dalam BM rasa macam pelik sikit. So I'm going to say in English, what we know now that we didn't before, and dari perspektif kita ini sebagai podcaster. Sebab kita berlima ni memang sebelum jadi podcaster ada buat kerja advokasi for inclusion, advocacy on autism in our own capacity. Kan? Tetapi dalam saya rasa 2 tahun lebih ni and we went into this, saya rasa memang I can say safely for all of us lah, there was no like expectation yang tinggi, right? It's more that we wanted to share what we know, bring awareness, get the conversation going. But so let's talk about what have we learned now as podcasters of 2 years plus that we didn't know before. So maybe we start with dari perspective of assumptions and early perspective kan. So maybe di hari-hari permulaan lah sebagai podcaster. Apakah maybe, I know I said we didn't go in with any expectation, tapi dalam hati memanglah ada sedikit kan. Some of us, we have that little bit of expectation. So maybe you can share. We start with Anit. I see her ready to answer. So it can be either your assumption or your early perspective sebagai podcaster bila kita baru start this podcast.
Okay. I didn't think that 5 mothers could be a source of comfort to public out there. Sebab kita bukan ibu yang high profile, bukan influencer, bukan personality yang dynamic kan. We have our circle among our little circle, and we had our experience within what we did. So my assumption was, ya ke orang nak dengar pasal apa yang kami lalui dan apa yang kami telah dengar dan lihat bahawa parent-parent lain kepada anak-anak neurodivergent lalui juga. Tetapi that was something that surprised me because we often receive comments that the episode is a source of comfort. The discussion is something that most mothers could not have. I think what I definitely took for granted was that I was privileged that my journey didn't seem as alone as some people out there. Sebab ada ramai di sana yang menjadi hermit ataupun kurang berinteraksi dengan masyarakat luar apabila mempunyai diagnosis anak mereka. Ini kerana mereka pun sedang memproses, lepas tu menjadi sibuk dengan terapi, dengan let's fix this mode, let's do the best for the child and going on an overdrive sampai mengabaikan relationships, mengabaikan keluar dari rumah, mengabaikan the normal coffee mornings ke small things that they used to do, dan ini menjadikan mereka sangat merasa sunyi. And that is something that I think came across quite clearly to me, and I hope that it is a source of comfort for some people out there because it's not easy to open up and speak about your child and your fears and your aspirations. And not many people will understand. So I keep saying this. We share little milestones with us, milestones of victory. And we were quite comforted by that snippet that we shared, didn't we? About kita takut bila stock nugget habis, battery 1%, and some of the other ideas that came that, this feeling of fear and being alone was more apparent than we thought it was. That was one assumption that I had. I thought most people had some form of support. It appeared that less people had less support, and they were looking towards the internet, to Google and to other safe spaces online to receive information and support.
So it sounds like we didn't expect for KFM to be not only a source of information but a source of comfort.
Absolutely.
Right? And walaupun memang saya rasa kita semua memang tahu ada ramai antara parents seperti kita that feel a bit isolated, but I think being in the podcast, bila kita terima komen dan private messages kan, so we read all of the private messages, kadang-kadang cerita-cerita mereka ni memang is very heart-wrenching. And But we applaud all of you for actually reaching out in the comments and messages, because itulah langkah pertama untuk mendapatkan help for yourself. Saying it out loud, kan, the challenges that you face.
And no challenge is too small.
Exactly.
So kadang-kadang bila kami baca, kami tidak sangka bahawa situasi sebegitu boleh membangkitkan perasaan kecil hati ataupun pilu ataupun kesedihan yang amat mendadak. So for me, I think I learned that human reaction is so volatile. It's not just for neurodivergents, but also for neurotypicals dealing with situations that are unpredictable for them.
Didi, what are your thoughts? Soalan yang sama, your early assumptions or early perspectives bila baru start to become a podcaster, baby.
Well, I thought that bila kita mula podcast ni, kita akan banyak memberi, giving. Tak sangka sebenarnya along the way, bila kita memberi, validation yang kita dapat tu, dia bukan sekadar memberi semangat, tapi sebenarnya ia membantu diri kita sendiri, especially myself lah, because I'm sure some people would assume that bila kita bercakap di platform macam ni kan, yang kita got everything under control. Anak-anak kita semua on top of everything kan, semua macam okay je, semua dah ada tempat dia, belajar kat mana, tak ada benda yang kita nak risaukan, dah tak ada all this meltdown ke krisis apa-apa lagi kan. Tapi in the past 2 years, kita pun faham kan, like sebenarnya krisis yang bukan sekadar berkaitan dengan autism, anak-anak kita neurodivergent, but life as it is kan, kita sebagai seorang manusia lah dalam keluarga kita sendiri, so dalam kerjaya mungkin. Jadi all this cabaran sebenarnya rasa macam, kadang-kadang rasa macam itulah Noriman cakap, imposter syndrome ke, bila macam rasa layak ke nak share all this, sedangkan dalam hidup sendiri pun masih lagi struggle, masih lagi macam ada ketikanya hilang arah lah, macam apa nak buat ni kan, tak tahu, confused, hilang fokus. Tapi bila looking back, sebenarnya setiap kali kita keluarkan episod kan, bila berkongsi tu, satu perasaan mana bila kita dah mencuba menyumbangkan sesuatu kepada komuniti kita sendiri, rasa yang ada contribution lah kepada komuniti, dan harapnya always berharap that bila kita dapat membantu mana-manalah pendengar, penonton kan, kalau dapat bila menonton kita mana-mana episod, terasa macam rasa didengari ke, rasa not alone macam Anik cakap tadi kan, kita memudahkan mana-mana komuniti kita. Harapnya sebagai balasan, Tuhan pun memudahkan kehidupan kita dalam apa-apa cara sekalipun lah. Ada sedikit keberkatan yang dapat daripada usaha kita ni lah. So yeah, that's my assumption lah. But also like all this while pun rasa macam perlu ke kita ulang lagi? Rasa macam kita punya, bila nak sharing tu kan, rasa macam yang ni dah topik ni dah buat, tak payah buat lagi. And then macam rasa macam we want to do an advanced topic kan, nak lagi topik yang anak-anak dah besar ke, ataupun cabaran-cabaran yang orang tak sentuh lagi. Tapi sebenarnya bila looking back at the community kan, especially online lah kan, now that ada threads pula kan, bila ada orang mengeluarkan soalan kan, we can really see clearly that kita punya usaha create awareness, nak tambahkan understanding, kita punya advocacy work ni memang dia bukan linear, bukan macam menaik macam tu, dia macam in a loop. Kita perlu sentiasa kan,
it's a loop. Betul.
Yeah. So that's why
I think one of the assumptions that I had, that and I think maybe it was a hope and aspiration when we started the podcast was people will not say keep your child at home anymore because every neurodivergent child has got a right to be included and be in the public space. So itu adalah satu aspirasi saya lah pada masa itu, sebab memang susah kadang-kadang sebagai ibu bapa kami ditanya kan, kalau macam ni kenapa bawa anak? Tapi kadang-kadang kita tak ada tempat lain-lain untuk tinggalkan anak tu. Kita kena bawa bersama juga. Katalah kena pergi ke kubur ke, kena pergi ke majlis orang kahwin ke. Maybe orang kahwin is a bit optional. You tak pergi pun mungkin tak apa kan. Tapi kadang-kadang when do you want to say a farewell to a family member, and masjid atau kubur itu adalah penghormatan terakhir, are we going to then say kita tak pergi? Is our hermit situation going to be that bad? And one of my aspiration was there would be someone who would say yes, go, but maybe you go for a shorter time. Tetapi I don't think we have reached that stage where everybody is understanding. And so there's still a lot of work to be done. I hope there is improvement, and I pray for more improvement. Tetapi masih banyak perbualan yang perlu kami jalankan.
Yes. But I'm also gonna jump in there, Anit, and say for me personally, saya rasa memang ada perubahan. For me. Sebab sekarang ni memang Desiree ada pergi banyak majlis lah for different types of events, different types of circumstances. Ada majlis formal, tak formal. And I would say more than half of these events, bila saya dijemput, mereka akan jemput bersama family dan memang mereka tahu pun bahawa anak saya autistik. And you always say, don't worry, just bring your whole family. Dia bagi that assurance. Tetapi saya juga kadang-kadang fikirkan the situation and the scenario, bukan nak suruh anak dekat rumah. But for example, yesterday, I went for a symphony performance. It's a full orchestra. Kan? And because I respect the musicians and the event, saya tidak membawa Hans kerana Hans ni dia suka naik turun pentas. So imagine if it's a full orchestra and Hans naik turun pentas, is going to disrupt the event. Dan saya sangat bertuah kerana ada pilihan untuk seseorang menjaga Hans. So I took that option, right? So I want to say that saya rasa ada perubahan, ada kesedaran, tetapi we can do more. So I agree with your point as well. We still need to do more. Right, because we still hear from our community in the comments and in our messages about that sense of isolation that they still feel, or tak boleh pergi, in some cases can't go for a medical check-up sebab susah nak bawa anak bersama. How do you get yourself a medical check-up when you have to bring your autistic child in tow? Kan? Kena jaga anak tersebut. So, the challenges out there are still very, very real. So I need to say one thing that hit me, and bila kami pergi majlis macam ni, kami bergurau dengan orang-orang yang ada, dan ada feedback yang kami dapat. And I think this year, lebih daripada tahun lepas, saya ada ditanya, Puan, saya ada kawan yang saya rasa mempunyai anak autistik. Bagaimanakah saya boleh nasihatkan dia untuk pergi dapat diagnosis? So, you're right. There is awareness, but some people are aware and they can detect something wrong with another child, as in preliminary detect, not make a diagnosis. So, I'm using a word of detect, and we always talk about being detective. Tapi ada ramai yang memang tidak faham. So Didi, you want to jump in and say, please, is that something that comes also on Autism Malaysia, and how do you deal with it?
Itulah saya terfikirkan bila kita cakap all this while kita punya podcast ni more to parents lah yang mendengar kan. Perhaps this year 2026 kita punya fokus boleh untuk supaya mereka yang di luar komuniti, maksudnya yang keluarga-keluarga lain yang anak mungkin anak tipikal ataupun anak yang macam Anik cerita tadi yang sebenarnya perlu mendapatkan assessment lah. Tak semestinya ada mempunyai diagnosis, tapi untuk mendapatkan assessment. So the awareness tu kan, supaya parents do something lah, cakna dengan perkembangan anak-anak. So perhaps kita perlu meluaskan lagi kita punya jaringan, how to say,
our reach.
Kita punya our reach, so that people ni. Tapi kena ada ni jugalah, I think kita perlu sediakan juga tips-tips untuk bagaimana memberitahu ahli keluarga itu bahawa saya rasa you maybe boleh bawa anak you pergi assessment, because I don't think the best way is just cakap je anak you autistic ni, tak boleh lah kan. So I think that's something that we can look for in 2026, and also cakap tentang how people look into our kids kan, neurodivergent kids, yang I rasa the assumption that all these children, whenever they have this diagnosis and they apply for card, UCAD, sama ada card ataupun tak ada card lah, bila dah declare ada diagnosis ni, assumption is you mesti masuk PPKI. And then ada pula assumption, kenapa you bekerja, kenapa you diterima untuk masuk universiti. Sebab soalan-soalan yang saya nampak, this is just the past 1 week tau, not even the whole year. Ada yang tanya, boleh ke budak autism memandu kereta?
Boleh.
Mendapat lesen kereta. Yeah. First I want to say apa tau, being anak-anak dah buktikan. So I'm cheekily rasa nak cakap, budak mana-mana pun sebenarnya tak boleh ambil lesen memandu. Kan? Betul tak?
Yeah,
budak.
Exactly.
Yeah. Kids cannot.
That's why there's age limit.
Age limit. So, but autism, that's the thing, autism. Ada satu lagi soalan yang saya nampak, dia bertanya, bolehkah saya membawa anak autism saya ke pawagam? That's the thing. What's the context? Anak you yang macam mana? Pawagam macam mana nak bawa anak you pergi? Cerita apa? So, it's about understanding the whole spectrum of autism itself. Sama juga apabila kita lihat kan di airport di KLIA 2, bila nampak seseorang memakai lanyard butterfly effect, kadang-kadang kita rasa macam ya ke autistic ni, ya ke ada invisible disability. But that's the thing, it's called invisible for a reason. And also the characteristic of autism itself is not there mesti nampak all the time. Dia macam orang sakit jantung. Okay, I'm so sorry that autism is not penyakit, but it's like orang sakit jantung lah kan. You don't see dia sentiasa dalam kesakitan, but dia masih diconsider sakit jantung, betul tak? Walaupun dia tidak sakit setiap masa. So that's the understanding of what being neurodivergent itu kan, masih sangat rendah lah di kalangan masyarakat kita. Dan sekarang ni bila orang demand kan, what I see dalam social media, orang tanya, nak pergi restoran ni sesuai ke untuk anak autism? Boleh ke? And orang rasa kebanyakan mereka yang tidak terkesan, saya percaya mereka ni adalah mereka tidak terkesan langsung dengan autism ataupun ADHD atau any neurodivergent punya condition kan. Dia merasakan macam, why are you so entitled? Why do you want to demand this and that? When we already talk about reasonable accommodation kan, yang sebenarnya universally, there's a universal design, like you should provide it lah. Macam contoh macam ada sensory calming room, and then ada hari-hari tertentu where the music is not as loud as the other days. So saya sangat sedih dan terguris hatilah bila ada persepsi masyarakat yang merasakan that community autism ni demanding, like banyak sangatlah demand dia. What do you guys think about it?
No, for me, if they said kenapa entitled sangat nak bawa anak autistic, that means orang yang pakai kerusi roda pun tak boleh pergi ke restoran ke? It's not, and they're not demanding. They're just asking to be included on an equal basis as others. So they just want to be included. Dan jika orang lain boleh pergi restoran dan boleh makan, mereka juga mempunyai hak yang sama untuk cuba.
Ya, the thing kan, bila ada komen-komen dan soalan-soalan online macam ni, kadang-kadang orang yang menjawab dengan kurang sopan atau kurang baik, maybe they lack the context of what the question is really asking. Bila orang tanya, boleh ke bawa anak autism ke restoran ini? It's just a question. It's not even requesting. Saya nak bawa anak saya, boleh tak bagi ini special treatment? It's not. It's a question. So, for me, I feel kadang-kadang that's why we have this term keyboard warriors lah kan. Very quick to jump the gun. Like immediately dia fikir, ni mesti nak special treatment, ni mesti nak guna card OKU for special privileges. Tak. So I think we go back to let's be kinder kan. Janganlah buruk sangka setiap komen atau setiap soalan. Take the time to find out the context sebelum nak komen lah. And like what Didi said, memang I feel our reach kan as a podcast, sebenarnya itu pun assumption saya when we started, right? I was hoping and assuming that we would reach beyond our community. Sebab all 5 of us ni memang kita dah buat pelbagai benda in pelbagai form in our community for kesedaran, as a form of support for parents. Tapi tak sangka that Kita Family Podcast ni menjadi a source of support for the community. But that doesn't mean that we don't want to extend our reach. So sekarang saya mengambil kesempatan to give a shout out to our YouTube channel. Tolonglah subscribe, right? Because the more subscribers we have, the wider our reach. And kalau boleh, kita nak pergi beyond our community and our children's community. Kan? So on that note, let's take a short break and we'll be back shortly. Hai, selamat kembali ke episod ke-83 Kita Family Podcast. Hari ini kita membincangkan tentang what we know now that we didn't know before we became podcasters, specifically in relation to becoming Kita Family Podcasters kan. And I think daripada perbincangan tadi, we talk a little bit about our own personal expectations, assumptions, what has changed since then. And I love that Didi punya perspektif ni sebenarnya sangat meluas sebab juga membawa perspektif dari Autisma Malaysia kan. So dari membuat podcast, you also still see the conversations online yang sebenarnya tak banyak shift, which tells us we need wider reach and awareness is everyday kan. So now let's talk about maybe some real stories kan. So sebenarnya in this 2 years plus, ada je some of our listeners, penonton datang come to us in public or at events, besides reaching out to us in the chats and all that. So jom kita ceritakan sedikit tentang cerita-cerita ni yang we find so menarik. So who wants to go first?
Me.
Okay, I can go first because I know people are less shy to come and tell me they are neurodivergent or they have kids with neurodiversity. And that's a great conversation starter, especially with me. So I know my family and especially my husband say, you can really talk. No, and I talk to them because I know they have come and shared that because they want to talk. I don't think they shared it just in abstract. And for me, that was a great conversation starter. Or how they dealt with somebody who was neurodivergent. So great job, guys. Keep it up. As long as we can keep including, and jika kami sebagai warga negara yang lebih mempunyai empathy kepada mereka yang mempunyai ketidakupayaan ataupun berlainan keupayaan ataupun kepada mereka yang neurodivergent ataupun autistic, saya rasa that one person would have made a difference to one person's life and sometimes more than two, because kalau you are nice to anak I, you terus jadi
Kawan.
not just kawan, ada jugalah in my heart. Doakan orang tu sebagai thank you for making my child feel better. So thank you very much for those who came and shared. Thank you very much for those who even tried to explain that certain times they don't want to discriminate tapi the situation is not suitable. So adalah cerita-cerita macam tu yang memang keeps you going and to show that there are many people out there who just do not share their stories openly, but if given a small situation and safe space, they would like to share.
So Anit, I have a question on that. So this is in direct relation to you being on the podcast. So these are probably neurodivergents who have seen you on Kita Family and then feel comfortable to openly reveal, or
actually it's a combination of both. It's also the fact that I have a role of co-chairing the committee on persons with disabilities in the Bar Council. So they think it's a safe space to come and ask and come and say what they have gone through. Amazing. In the end, it's lived experiences that make the difference. Kalau kita tak tahu apa orang itu rasa dan apa perasaan seseorang itu, susah kami untuk membentuk apa-apa pemikiran kami. Dan bila kami jumpa policy maker ataupun penggubal undang-undang semua, kita perlu ada real stories untuk share kan? So kalau there are better stories, please come and tell us. Bukannya kami selalu jumpa pun orang-orang yang berpengaruh, tetapi bila ada kesempatan itu, we will share it.
Yes, definitely.
That is an assurance from us.
You can count on us.
Yes.
That. So sebenarnya kita pun when you said live experience, saya teringat our episode dengan Dr. Zahila. But before we talk about that, learning from the guests that we've had on our show, Didi ada satu cerita yang menarik sebenarnya. Dia, we know this story, but Didi, can you share your recent experience of one of our listeners coming up to you?
Beberapa minggu lepas, saya ni suka pergi bazar tau, suka pergi beli bazar mingguan lah, dekat KK ni ada, tiap-tiap minggu ada. So saya pergi bersama anak saya lah, beli matcha masa tu. Beli dah petang, dah pukul 5 macam tu, santai-santai. Tiba-tiba someone stop me lah. Dia tanya, are you in a podcast? So I said yes lah. Yes, betul. Dia cakap lah, I watch Kita Family. So I was like, okay. Dia pun cerita lah, dia ada anak. And then ada dua perkara yang membuatkan saya sangat tersentuh lah. Satu, dia beritahu saya bahawa dia mendapatkan kad OKU untuk anak dia setelah melihat salah satu kita punya episod tentang OKU card. So rasa macam the impact kan. Dan dia bukan, kita bukan agent, kita bukan macam semua orang marilah apply OKU card. It's not like that, but to help a mother to make a decision. Betul tak? Sama ada nak ambil,
better understanding.
Tidak. Yeah, better understanding. And then lepas tu saya tanyalah dia, lepas dia ada explain sikit lah karakteristik anak dia. Anak dia masa tu bersama. Saya tanya, do you know anyone else in KK? Kan? Yang punya anak yang sama lah macam anak-anak kita kan. And dia cakap tak ada. Dia tak ada kenal siapa-siapa. I was like macam, so all this while she has us lah in her journey. So rasa macam such a big impact in the family's life kan.
Yes. Lepas and now she has you in person. And now she has you in person. She's had us virtually kan, like on YouTube, on Spotify, but now she has you in person.
Lepas tu saya tanyalah dia kerja apa. Not that I want to like macam nak tahulah dia kerja apa, but I want to know lah, if you are not like working 9 to 5, perhaps boleh pergi kopi-kopi, something like that lah. So, but mula-mula anak dia macam yelah kan, macam kalau macam anak-anak kita lah, when not in the conversation dia malas nak layan, macam cepatlah kan, dengan muka annoyed dia, macam bila nak gerak ni, but after that I said something to the child, and then the child lepas tu make a comment towards Amy. So you can see the picture that I shared with you guys kan, the girl was smiling. So it just shows that kita kan bila berada dalam community, kita boleh buat each other rasa selesa. Bila kita faham kan, kita bukan sekadar boleh buatkan parents rasa selesa, kita pun boleh buat anak-anak rasa selesa. But you just need to have another person, another family, another group kan, to feel that you belong. So I hope that kita family bukan sekadar semua orang macam menjadi personal friends to us, but for our community to understand lah that we need each other, reach out, especially in your locality kan. So don't be alone, and hopefully bukan sekadar kita yang berada di alam maya ni lah, in everyday life also you get the support that you need. So that's my hope lah.
That's a very lovely and beautiful story kan?
It is.
And yeah, so Didi, you also said something about a story maybe that stood out to you from one of our recent guests. Maybe you can share that.
Itulah the thing about kita being a mother kan, bila berjumpa dengan neurodivergent adult, there's always macam kita nak tahu how their childhood was, and then macam mana apa yang mak dia buat lah pada dia kan. So it's amazing to learn how mothers sebenarnya tak perlukan diagnosis pun untuk support anak-anak. Macam kita bila kita belajar tentang strategi, we have more understanding, banyak boleh buat, tapi sebenarnya dengan kita punya own instinct pun, if we empathize dengan apa yang anak kita lalui, kita boleh jadi lebih supportive. Sebab macam bila dengar cerita kan, macam selalu relate dengan diri sendirilah, like do we support our children enough? Kita macam nak anak-anak kita punya childhood sama macam childhood kita ke, ataupun berbeza? So trying to find similarities and differences tu always there lah, all the time kan. And ada memanglah, we cannot deny there are also live experience kan, adult yang rasa traumatized by their childhood, tapi kita menjadikan semua cerita-cerita ni pengajaran lah kan. So like Anit, I'm also feeling blessed and rasa mungkin kata happy ke? Yeah, happy lah that there are neurodivergent adults who feel comfortable to share stories with us, not just on the podcast but also on personal level. And the fact that itulah kita, if you guys tak tengok lagi the very previous episode, ini 83, watch our episode 82 bersama dengan Izzat Zaid. Banyak yang boleh kita belajar, dan macam to have that relationship yang boleh jemput dia dalam keadaan yang bukannya she kind of like had a free day that time kan. She just landed daripada Thailand, and I grabbed her at the airport and terus bawa datang studio. So to have such commitment, to have all everybody supporting our work, that's a blessing, I feel.
Yeah, so I think Izzat's story really stood out, especially when dia cerita tentang ibu dia kan, ibu Izzat yang memang brought her up to just accept being different kan. And I think that a lot of the themes that came out when Izzat was speaking also relates back to Dr. Zhao on the presumed competence and going with the strengths, right? So contohnya kalau seseorang tu tak pandai nak sapu lantai, janganlah suruh dia sapu lantai. Tapi kalau dia pandai basuh pinggan, suruhlah dia basuh pinggan, you know. So working with that, their strengths rather than forcing them to do what they don't like, lepas tu kena punish, kena marah dan sebagainya. I think Izzat grew in that sort of environment that made a big difference for her. Tapi kalau nak dengar her cerita in full, if belum dengar lagi, please go to episode 82. Now let's go back to Anin, right? There was something that Dr. Zahila said that stood out to you as well. So
yeah, I think she said this behind the scenes. So bagi penonton yang tidak tahu, kadang-kadang on screen memang ada 2 orang saja di belakang tabir. Ada juga podcaster-podcaster lain yang buat muka, tepuk tangan, give them semangat. So I was belakang tabir during that episode, and some of the things that Dr. Zahila shared memang tak sempat lah untuk kami rekod dan menjadi sebahagian daripada episod beliau. Tetapi one story that she shared which really touched me was the fact that as medical doctors, a lot of them are not trained on how to deal with disability. And when she conducts the spell workshops, she tells them to treat every patient like an individual and presume competence. And one doctor called her back to say what a difference it made that a child that was non-verbal, who the parent thought would never put on an oxygen mask or never want to be admitted, just because the doctor took time to engage with the child, took him to a quiet corner, introduced herself and explained in very basic language what was happening and why he needed an oxygen mask and to be in hospital. He himself took the mask and put it on his face. And that to me brought tears to my eyes, because it was like, actually they know, they just want to feel included, because a lot of them feel very lonely. And right after she did that, I have to relate it to me noticing something with my child, Nirav. He had been interning in a school where he was a teaching assistant, and it was going to be the last day. And he had told me to help him to buy some gifts. Tak mahal lah, colour pencil saja dia nak bagi kepada anak murid dia on the last day. So dia bagi tahu saya satu nombor lah. Ini adalah bilangan anak murid saya. Tapi sebagai mami yang tahu kadang-kadang anak neurodivergent ni memang maklumat mereka tak tepat kan. Kadang-kadang kita kena agak-agak sendiri. Saya memang belilah ekstra. Tapi bila datang pada masa nak kita label untuk dia bagi kepada anak murid itu, kami sedar that kekurangan satu colour pencil tu. So mula-mula supervisor dia pun kata, oh tak apa, ada banyak benda lain, tak apa. Tapi bila saya cerita kepada Nirav yang ini kekurangan satu, dan apakah perasaan anak murid itu yang tidak dapat, beliau terus cakap, let's go, we need to go. And tengah masa tu, it's like close to 10 PM, nak cari kedai untuk beli colour pencil tu pun sangat susah, tapi dia memang nak cuba. So saya pun bawa lah kereta. We reached the kedai that usually closes at 10 PM pada 10:10 malam ya. Oh, wow. 10 minit itu saya mendebar sebab saya tanya kepada Nirav, why is it so important? I don't want him to feel left out. Was empathy. The answer.
Yeah, he has empathy.
Yeah. And it took someone like him to feel that. So bila saya kata, okay, and then bila pergi kat kedai tu, shutter dah memang half down. Tapi dia lari. Dia sendiri usaha. Dia bawa duit, dia lari. Bila balik, yes, colour pencil tu lain daripada anak lain tu dapat. Tetapi lebih. So I was like, hey, untuk yang lain you beli 12. Kenapa yang ni 24? Oh, I need to make it up to the fact I forgot. So, rasa macam kalau orang kata neurodivergent ini tak ada feeling, itu adalah satu anggapan yang salah. Kalau anak-anak neurodivergent ini tidak tahu merasa, itu adalah anggapan yang salah. Tetapi pada hari itu saya memang sedar bahawa dia tahu apakah itu perasaan to be left out, yang tidak di-include, dan dia memang nak make it up by doubling apa yang orang lain dapat. And that was a lesson to me too. And it came right after Dr. Zahila's episode, and I thought, okay, presume competence, they know what they're doing. Kadang-kadang kita kena just let it go.
Yes, we need to let it go. So kepada yang mungkin belum tengok episod tersebut, ia adalah episod ke-81 where we talk about neuroaffirming. It's a very, very heartwarming story actually. Actually all our story, both your stories, memang saya pun sangat terharu walaupun pernah dengar semua cerita-cerita ni except the colour pencil one. Memang terharu dengar, and I feel like
mak berdebar ya bawa kereta.
Saya pun berdebar as you're telling me the story. I can feel kan, sebab kan empathy kan, so we feel it.
Sebab all the way there dia berdebar. Will the shop be closed? Do you think we can get it? Will the shop be closed? Tapi bila dia dapat, dia masuk kereta, we got it.
Yes. Yeah. And I think this is also what the podcast has taught us, me, right? Memang kita tak tahu semua-semua. We are still learning, and as much as I think at the beginning of the episode tadi, Didi kata assumption was that we would be giving, we would be sharing. Tapi I think the very pleasant thing that most of us probably didn't expect is how much now we are receiving in return. Kita pun sambil duduk sini bercakap, kami belajar because some of the topics kan memang yang technical sedikit, kita kena duduk baca buku dan and to actually read it, and we learn from other people's experience. And I'm going to share one of my own story from one of our listeners before we close off. Sebenarnya cerita ni mengingatkan saya tentang nasihat saya sendiri, right? Recently I think dia seorang kawan Didi. Bila Didi balik ke KL a few weeks ago, kawan Didi pun datang jemput dia. Saya bersama Didi masa tu, when this lady, she gave me a hug and she said, Desiree, I still remember and it stuck with me what you said in one of your episode. And I'm like, wow, someone's gonna quote me to me. I pun rasa macam goosebumps and terharu lah. And then she said, apparently I shared in one episode about how my sort of self-care is every night I have a cut-off time. Bila anak dah tidur, saya akan duduk dan tengok Netflix. Saya tak akan balas WhatsApp or check emails or whatever. Right? And she said she realised that, hey, this is something she could do too. Dan dia pun buat sebegitu. She cuts off at a certain time at night. Dia tak balas buang email ke message whatever. Anak dah tidur, dia pun duduk and watch Netflix. And she feels happy doing it. Dan bila beliau bercakap dengan saya tentang cerita ni, I actually felt, number one, of course, terharu. And secondly, I was like, oh my God, I need to start taking back my own advice. Sebab dah lama, saya tak buat benda tu. I'm always occupied until I fall asleep. Dan selepas hari tersebut, saya diingati untuk mengambil nasihat saya sendiri. So, thank you for that reminder.
And thank you because I think Desiree had some change of circumstances too. From a mum of one, she became a mum of two.
Yes.
So obviously time is a bit more scarce.
Very scarce, yes.
Yes. So, tapi I like the story you shared earlier that you explained to one of your students that there may be an autistic child sharing the space, and the child said,
so to give a bit of context, I teach 2 10-year-old kids on a weekly basis, and so happened in the next class, my son was going to be on the premises. Hans was going to be there. So I went and explained to these 2 10-year-olds that, look, there is another 10-year-old coming tomorrow, but he's not a 10-year-old like you are. He's not able to speak verbally, and he can't do the same work that you do. He has something called autism. And the girl went, I know how to be friends with someone who has autism. And she was very excited, and her face lit up, and that truly brought so much joy to me to hear that, coming from a 10-year-old child who is exactly the same age as Hans. And I think that really taught me that kanak-kanak sebenarnya mereka memang dah inklusif pun. Dan Nori pun selalu sebutkan kanak-kanak semua memang dah inklusif. Yang mereka belajar untuk jadi tak inklusif daripada kita lah, orang dewasa.
Itulah I tak boleh henti senyum sebab story tu memang Macam like, one of those Christmas stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's so beautiful.
Thank you. So with that, any closing? Yes, Didi.
Satu lagi cerita. Anak, my daughter, eldest one, Alfia, she loves being by herself, nak bilik sendiri, tak suka keluar bilik. So, bila kita travel pun kalau boleh dia nak bilik asing. Kalau boleh katil pun tak nak kongsi lah dengan adik dia. So, what's going to happen tomorrow, I have to be admitted for a medical procedure lah. And I had to be kept overnight at the hospital. So nothing serious. Hopefully everything will go well. But I just tell her lah that I need to be admitted, and saja-sajalah tanya kan main-main, would you like to stay at the hospital with me? Sebab dia dah mula cuti, dia dalam cuti sekolah lah, adik dia masih ada kelas lagi. And surprisingly she said yes. And lepas tu I macam I tanyalah, why you want to be there? And she said, I want to take care of you.
Oh, Didi.
So I macam wow. Tapi
mereka ada perasaan macam, ini dah ada 2-3 cerita.
Yes.
Hari ni
just imagine like orang yang tak suka share bilik but doesn't mind coming. And then I pun fikir lah, alamak, takut juga nak tidur seorang-seorang kan. So it'd be nice. We'll see.
Love Mama Didi.
Yeah.
So I guess like kita selalu, bukan kita lah, I mean like ramai orang selalu anggap that autistic because dia punya expression pun tak macam kita yang sangat animated. So macam mungkin tak prihatin, tak kisah, tak ni. Tapi bila kita share, kita cuba tanya je kan, dapat reaction macam tu. So hopefully everything goes well lah tomorrow.
Yes, I'm sure it will. Kita sama-sama berdoa.
With the grace of God, it will.
Yes, and
you just keep that smile on your face, Didi. It lights up the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so with that, I think we are ready to wrap up episode ke-83, talking about what we know now that we didn't know before, especially in relation to our journey as podcasters. Ada juga cerita-cerita yang berkaitan, not necessarily about being podcasters, but it's all part of our big story, kan? And I feel
any wishes for 2026? Kita boleh buat 4 kali macam Nori cakap.
Yes,
setiap tahun baru kita boleh buat. Tapi kita start lah macam ni kan.
Kindness. I think I want to hope for more kindness all around. And juga a reminder to myself lah. Kadang-kadang kita pun moody kan. I'll admit I can be a very moody person. So I pun need to remind myself to be kind to myself. Right? I can be kind to others. I think it's quite evident that most of us are kind to others. But kindness to ourselves.
Didi. Other than health.
Yeah.
Wish.
Yeah. Hopefully I get myself fixed. 2026. So hoping for a smoother year academically for the kids, social wise as well, and to grow with the children. Not in size, but to grow. I mean, like all the development and everything, can the children, and because it's a big phase. 16 turning 17, almost adulthood. So not easy having 2 autistic teenagers, girls pula lagi. Sometimes I wonder, these because of having autistic teenagers or just having teenagers in general?
Most of the time it's having teenagers.
Yes.
Not even autistic thing. It's just so yeah.
It's a difficult
well, thank you for the well, hoping for a smoother year, inshallah.
Oh, I got one more. Can I have one more hope?
Yeah.
For more subscribers on YouTube for Kita Family.
Yes. And more reach. For me, I think I pray for a year of growth in whichever way. And with every guest that we have had, we have learned something new. And for me, I think it was Mr. Money TV also telling us, Peter, that, you guys are doing okay. And coming from someone who's like the financial guru. It was like,
In a very established podcaster, I might add.
Yeah, so that was a period of but we learned so much from him about little investment tips, something that or at least I would have never ordinarily done in the path that I was taking.
Yeah.
So for more growth, not just for us, but for all our listeners, and safe space for all of you if you need it, and a happy, healthy 2026 with better school year when it's back to January to November.
Yes. Okay, so with that, terima kasih. And as usual, we sign off with reminders to please follow, like, share and subscribe. We are on TikTok, Facebook and Instagram. And for full episodes, boleh menonton di YouTube dan juga boleh mendengar di Spotify. Terima kasih and send us your comments, your private messages. We read them all dan juga suggestions for what else you would like to hear. Thank you from Kita Family Podcast, episode 83. Bye-bye.